Question.
So for the last few days, I couldn't sleep well. Like I just got 2 to 3 hours, and the reason that happened was whenever I tried going to sleep, a really disturbing thought will pop up, or sensation, I would argue, like a feeling of apprehension, and then I will wake up. Like it's as if my flight and fight response gets activated. And then it calms down a bit. I try sleeping and it gets reactivated again. And this time, the content of those apprehension was my job being not there within 5 to 6 years because of AI automation. So what
Okay.
can
All
I
right.
do?
All right.
What can I do? Like
Okay.
this happened to me earlier as well
Okay.
because of some other content. But can I suppress this signal, the apprehensive signal, or is there something that I can do?
Okay. Well, first, let's speak generally. Then we'll talk
Yes.
about intrusive thoughts more specifically. And then we'll talk about whether or not you can suppress it. Fair? All right.
Yes.
So, with insomnia or the inability to sleep, which is common, if you don't need the fan, it'd be probably good to turn that off for the sound. Okay?
Sorry.
And then we'll get to insomnia. You can go ahead and do that.
Yep. How about now?
That's perfect. Thank you very much. Now, so with regard to not being able to sleep, there's an old adage. I think it comes from Chris Christopherson. He says that if you can't sleep, you haven't worked hard enough, you haven't played hard enough, or you haven't loved hard enough. You know, and you have to know Chris Christopherson to know how that's a little bit funny. All right. So if you haven't worked hard enough, played hard enough, or loved hard enough, then you might have trouble sleeping. Now, with regard to intrusive thoughts as you're going to sleep, yeah, that's exactly what happens, because you've got all the distractions go away, right? You're not talking with people, you're not running around, you're not cleaning up the kitchen or whatever, right? Now these thoughts come up to the surface that have come to, like dreams, they've come to like alert you, right? And until you get the stuff settled, you're probably going to have some difficulty sleeping because these are important thoughts, right? So in other words, this is natural, this is normal, this is adaptive, and it means something's got to get done, right? With regard to suppressing those thoughts, the suppression of thoughts takes more thought unconsciously, and it takes more energy. And so suppressing thoughts is not a good idea because it comes out in displacement, right? So you won't worry about getting a job. You'll worry about the Gaza Strip, right? Or the Israelis, whatever. You see what I'm saying? So suppression is not so. Displacement is such a common factor in human mentation that if you try and suppress something one place, it'll come out someplace else. Like it'll come out in a physical symptom. It'll come out in GI problems or a headache or pain in a part of the body, or even rashes, And so, or you take the energy that you were going to direct against, say, someone like your boss or your wife, and you end up taking it out on the family dog or the kids, even worse. See what I'm saying? I don't know about worse, but
Yeah.
so pretty bad. Okay, so does that answer that question about the suppression?
Yes.
All right.
But
So in other words, these
yeah,
thoughts are
so
normal. Okay, you have a follow-up question? Okay, follow up.
yeah, but what can I do? Like, what if it is warning about something that I can't stop? Or what if it's just my thinking that I will die tomorrow or today within an hour or so? Then,
Well,
I can't even do anything about it.
these are two very different things. one set of thoughts is adaptive, the ones that say, hey, I'm going to get replaced by AI, right? That's adaptive. That's helpful. That's useful. So what thought comes after, I think I'm going to die in an hour? All right, let's make those two separate questions. So I answered the first one, right? That these are adaptive thoughts. They are part of the normal suffering of life, right? This has come to alert you that something needs to be done, and you're not going to have peace. You'll still be able to sleep a bit, right? But you're not going to have peace until you resolve these issues, right? Fair?
Yeah. So So I was actually, let's continue with that.
Okay.
The job automation itself.
Okay, good.
So my problem with that job automation was everything will be automated by AI eventually. So
no.
What can I do?
See, people have this fantasy about AGI, right? They think the machines are going to be conscious and they're going to have agency. There's no evidence for that to happen. All right? There's nothing in the machine, there's nothing in the calculations that has anything to do with consciousness. They don't know that yet, but they will. I mean, that's they're enthusiastic, right? They're excited. I can understand. I've been there myself, right? But that's not consciousness. So the machine will not be conscious. Now, if we hybridize an animal or a human with the machine, then we will have conscious AIs. But that's a different thing, right? So let's say we had a human AI hybrid, God forbid, right? Although who knows, we may need it, right? To protect ourselves from the machines can be very dangerous whether they're conscious or not, right? And they can be very disruptive whether they're conscious or not. This happens every technological revolution, right? This happened with the printing press, this happened with the camera, this happened with the automobile, and it always ends up that it creates more jobs. And it's if you look at history, it was impossible to convince people of this. And then, a few years later, they go, oh, okay, we see what you mean. Every increase in capacity increases more opportunity, right? So
I just can't see that. I just can't see that.
No, because you're young. You're young. And go ahead. So are you worried about conscious AI, or are you worried about intelligent machines that can think?
I'm not so much worried about that because it's really difficult to get that with the research direction that is being taken for the AIs and all. Like something revolutionary had to be thought up or defined to actually reach that AGI part. That's what I think.
Yeah, so we're not close to that. I don't see anything. You tell me, but I don't see anything on the landscape that suggests conscious AI. And to me, that's what AGI is. AGI would have agency. It would decide to do things on its own. It would have creativity, which it does not have. Now, it can do all kinds of miraculous, wonderful things, but it's all just thinking, right? Just calculations.
It's just combination of things that it has learned. But it's
just like us, right? Just like our brains.
Yeah.
To some extent, except it's... Go ahead.
Except it has learned from all the text in the whole internet and all the books.
And so we're very impressed by the sum total of human knowledge.
Yeah, essentially.
But see, that's not very impressive, actually. That's not very impressive, actually. But go ahead.
But at the same time, that's a good way to say whether your job will get replaced or not. Because if the answer for your job is within the domain of all possible text or media in the whole internet, then yeah, your job won't get replaced. Else, it's a bit difficult, but I don't know.
Yeah, so there's no question that many jobs will eventually be lost, right?
Yeah.
The job of the person who put the hooves on the horse, those guys got wiped out. Those guys got wiped out with the automobile. The people who built the saddles, they got wiped out. But there'll be demand for certain things, right? And you know what those are, right? What the demands that will continue?
I'm not sure about that.
Well, there'll always be a demand for expert human craftsmanship. and human art. There's some paintings, for example, that people laugh at right now because they say, oh, they're really ridiculously overpriced. Well, they are, right? And they're used for money laundering. But there's some great art that's done by humans that's not going to be replaced by a machine because it's got the human element. That's one thing. In addition to that, there's some art doesn't exist as a one-off. It exists in a whole trajectory of history of art, say of painting, for example. And so what makes a painting important may be its own beauty, or the amount of work or labor or skill or thought that went into it. But in addition to that, it fits into a trajectory. And so so people who know about art know this, right? And so the machine is unlikely to be able to do that unless it has creativity. And we have no idea what creativity is either, computationally. You've read David Deutsch on creativity?
No.
Okay,
no.
You must read this. Just that chapter, if nothing else. Read The Beginning of Infinity. Read a chapter. I think there's a chapter on creativity. I don't want to pull it out right now.
I was reading it, but yeah.
All right, we'll get to the creativity part. But in addition to that, you could just think about it, right? The creative is something that precedes being and non-being. But we'll get into that later. So then, there are things that humans do. For example, have people stopped playing chess? Now that machines can do it infinitely better, have they stopped playing chess?
No.
Okay, so they continue to do things even though machines can do them better because that's part of being a human, right?
But that's the difference between work and leisure.
Okay,
In leisure, yeah.
Okay. All right, so I don't want to get too far off, but what you're not taking into account is there'll also be a revolution in the economy. Okay, so let's say we don't blow ourselves up and we don't create World War III and we don't create some pandemic that wipes out 3/4 of the population and things continue to move forward. The economic growth that we're talking about is almost inconceivable to humans right now. For example, right now, in order to get oil for energy, right, we dig down in the ground, we pull out the oil, then we refine it once or twice or 3 times, right? And then we package it up, put it on a tanker, and then or a pipeline or whatever, and then we ship it over across the ocean or across the sea or down the river, whatever. It takes a lot of work and it employs a lot of people. Now imagine when energy is free, like when we just have solar panels and nuclear facilities, and maybe some places we have water or whatever, but now energy is free. There's no cost of transport. There's no cost of creation. You don't have to drill for it. You don't have to extract it. You don't have to. So now with free energy, what can we do? Well, we can clean we can clean up any lake, right? We can clean up the pollution.
Yeah.
We can plant, and now we've got machines that will plant for us and harvest for us. So we have unlimited food, right? And we also can genetically modify the food, and as we've already done, and it becomes much more higher yield, for better for worse, right? When I was growing up, an ear of corn looked like more or less like this. It was about that big around, and an orange was about like that. Now an orange is like this, and the corn is like So in other words, there's unlimited abundance. That's the part people don't get, right? So so universal basic income will be absolutely part of the equation. So no one's going to have to worry about food, shelter, or food to eat, or a place to sleep, right?
Yeah.
See, people don't realize now how wealthy they are, right? Like right now in 2024, we are fabulously wealthy. We think nothing about flying around halfway around the world or all the way around the world. We think nothing of it. We think nothing of having cuisines from 6 different cultures in our kitchen.
Yeah.
We think nothing of being able to get ice cream any time of the or sherbet any time of the day or night. You know what it used to take to get ice in Saudi Arabia for sherbet? Only kings could have something like that, right? So we're already very, very wealthy, but the problem with the human is that we can't see that because we're humans, right? We take it all for granted, okay? So this is still going to happen. So as our economy expands exponentially, free energy, The cost of food drops to almost nothing. Water, clean water, right? Whatever you want, build it, whatever anything you want. You can just, it doesn't cost very much, right? Now that's still, we're not talking about the transition, but you shouldn't worry for the long term, because in the long term, if we survive as a species, and we continue along this trajectory, there's going to be so much, it'll be a revolution in humanity, right? We could send robots to an asteroid, mine it for minerals, and since the energy doesn't cost much, now we have unlimited rare minerals. And with those, we can make more machines and more robots. And we don't have to build the robots; they build themselves, right? And they build the cars, right?
It depends on a lot of things. Honestly, it depends on how the government or politicians will behave. If they act freely,
correct, absolutely,
this won't happen.
Agreed.
Which, honestly, won't happen. Honestly.
Well, no, you don't know that it won't happen. Now, as a matter of fact, I would say that eventually, if we survive, it will happen. Of course. Yeah, don't bet against technological progress, my friend.
I'm not betting against it. I'm just saying people are not ready, and
I know they're not ready, but that's a separate question. Now, I'm not talking 3 years from now, or even 5 years from now. I'm talking now 20 years from now, or 15 years from now. And manufacturing has been handed over to the machines. Legal work is being done by all of it's being done by machines. Medical work is done by machines, right? But there's still a place for the human in there, because for two reasons. One is we prefer it that way. And two is those machines can never be creative. They're not conscious, and they can't communicate with us at that level. Now, where we go from there is, what about hybrid, organic, non-organic machines? But let's not get into that. Let's go back, because we want to get practical here. Like, what about the next 3 to 5 years, let's say? Because it's very easy to say the end of the world is coming. The end of the world is coming. And they've been saying it, I've known about it since like about 100 years after Jesus Christ died, right? That's the first time I heard people talking about the end of the world. And every 200 years, or every 150 years, or something like that, it's the end of the world. 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 The end of the world occurs in another way altogether than what we're thinking right now. Because the world relies on human consciousness, you see. But I know what you're saying. The politicians aren't going to work properly. They're going to screw everything up. They're going to tax us to death, and we're all going to end up homeless and using cheap Mexican drugs. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, honestly, yes.
Okay.
Living in poverty.
All right. See, the problem with that approach is that, number one, you don't prepare yourself for the future. And number two, it feels crappy. And number three, we need you, man. We need everybody to contribute to. You can't have it. The way to have a good future is to build it. You don't just lay back and say, "Oh, the politicians suck so bad. I'll just do some fentanyl. I'll just shoot heroin because everything's so horrible." Yeah, people do that, but they cause horrible suffering for themselves and others that way. It doesn't make any sense. They did this with the opium wars in China, in the last centuries. So this is nothing new. And if you want to lose, that's how you lose. You say, well, there's nothing I can do, and it's all going to hell, and there's nothing I can do about it, so I'm just going to, not sleep at night and just worry, or just, feel sad for myself. That's not adaptive. That's not functional. And that also creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. Right?
Yeah,
Why would you do that?
You ask a question.
Why would an intelligent young man take that path instead of the path of, hey, the world is asking me to help out here. The world is demanding that I be creative, that I be thoughtful, that I do the work that's always been done by how did we get here? People worked, and we should be grateful to them. The idea that you could fly around the world, that took work on people's part. Somebody had to say, hey, what happened when man said, oh, I think we can fly? Everybody said, no, you'll never fly. You can't fly. If God meant us to fly, he would have given us wings, right?
Yeah.
That was 100 years ago. Now we're going to Mars. So yeah, there's going to be losers. There's going to be people that have to be taken care of, and they'll all be in ghettos someplace. And yeah, there'll be nice ghettos. They'll have a nice little space, you know. They'll have food and shelter and water and stuff like that. But why, you know, compared to like helping create the world, why wouldn't you want to do that instead? Be in the world, but not of the world. Pardon me, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I logically do know that optimism, like being optimistic, is way better than like.
I'm not asking for optimism. I'm asking for just clear-headed thinking. Look at, I mean, it's inferential, right? I mean, there's been many times when we thought the world was ending because there was a technological advance. I mean, the Arabs in the very beginning thought the radio was from the devil, right? The Aztecs thought the man and the horse was one creature, right? The world is going to end. Well, yeah, in a way it does, but not really. It just keeps growing. It keeps learning. It keeps evolving. We're part of a large process here, right? So you don't have to be optimistic. Do you acknowledge that those things are true?
Yeah.
So you don't need to be optimistic.
Yeah. But I don't know. I have one problem with that, because this time AI is way more powerful, like orders of powerful in terms of automation compared to what happened.
Only with words and numbers. Only with words and numbers. Now, and later it'll translate into genetic modifications and into all kinds of biological things, but right now it's just words and numbers. It means nothing if you're not involved with words and numbers. I mean, so one of the great disadvantages of living in a city is that you don't see nature right here doing just fine. It doesn't. We could be 100 years ago. If you look at the animals and the trees and the birds and all that, it could be much longer than that, right? If you look at the possums, it could be 60 million years ago, right? So this is going to continue, right? Now we've gone off on our little fantasy about the AI. We're going to create this new creature that's going to run the world and all this. No, unless it's conscious, it's not going to be running anything. And the only way it gets conscious is if we hybridize it with the human or some other animal. All right. So now, what's the fear, or what's the reason for the pessimism? I don't understand.
That's what. Yeah. So I wanted to bring the second part up, and that's because I just go to Reddit, YouTube, or X and just doom scroll on the worst case scenarios about people discussing these things will happen.
So Reddit, X, and what else?
X, Reddit, YouTube videos.
Okay.
And
okay. So now, okay. Go on. Let's make it a question. All right.
Yeah.
So you go ahead.
Yeah. So I just doom scroll a lot and just think that only bad things happen in this world, and AI will just decimate ourselves, decimate the economy and everything. And it happens because I just go through comments in Reddit, YouTube, or X, and look, observe people discussing these things.
Now, why
do I do it?
Okay, why do you do it? Why do people?
And why do I just?
Okay, ask the question. Why do I doom scroll or something like that?
Yeah, why do I doom scroll, and why do I compulsively do it? It's like I need to do it. It's not like I enjoy it.
Good, perfect, excellent. Yeah, this is a very useful question. Good. All right. First of all, you've got the trifecta: Reddit, X, and YouTube. Man, you get some good doom scrolling in there, right? Right. So yeah. All right. So look. Why do people go to movies where someone almost always gets killed, or something dramatic happens? They have to jump off a cliff, or there's monsters, right? The horror movie genre. Why do they go to that?
To get thrill of it, but honestly, I don't know, because I don't go to these movies.
You don't go to these movies. You don't have to. You got Reddit, X, and YouTube, right? To get you all ginned up, all scared, right? Because it's because the human likes it's a process called active mastery, And in active mastery, we take a situation that no animal likes to be passively sitting there, unable to do anything, and it's going to get hurt or killed or tortured. No animal likes that, right?
Then what's the freeze response? What's the freeze
Well,
response?
that's an adaptive response. So either the predator thinks it's dead, or they can't be seen because they're not moving, right? So a lot of creatures like frogs and some birds and stuff like that, their eyes are very, very sensitive to moving objects, right? And even humans.
Yeah.
If something doesn't move, let's say we're looking in the forest and there's nothing moving, we can't see the deer standing right there in front of us because of its color, right? And the other colors of the forest. So that freeze is an adaptive response. Now with others, it's called playing dead. Like that's possums, right? And they're hilarious, man. When they're playing dead, you cannot get them to break roll, man. As a kid, we used to try and get them to break roll. They will not break roll. So those are adaptive defenses against predators, right?
Yeah.
Now it's maladaptive if you do it in a freeway, right? But the deer haven't learned yet to adapt to freeways. But in nature, it really increases their odds, right? So that's the freeze reflex. Okay, now. Okay, so we got to freeze from the horror movies and things like that. The spills and chills and all that stuff. I mean, do you see what's his name? Who's that Scientologist that jumps off the cliff, on his motorcycle?
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise, yeah. Yeah, people love that stuff, right? They'll go see that any day over just a description of over a quiet drama, right? I didn't see Oppenheimer, but was Oppenheimer, did it have any spills and thrills in it? Did you see Oppenheimer?
Yeah. There was, but not much.
Was it any good?
Yeah, it is pretty good. Yeah.
How was there? Okay, so in general though, on any given weekend, Oppenheimer's a little different because lots of marketing and this and that. So people go for what's going to be most exciting. People like excitement. And also people like money, right? Now, I'm not saying this is true on X, but on YouTube, certainly. I don't know about X and Reddit, but maybe on X these days, now that they're paying for engagement. What gets engagement? Well, something inflammatory, something, scary, something, it's got to be really, really hideous. And we call that entertainment. That's just what we're like. That's what we're like. So again, active mastery again. So it's an unconscious defense mechanism by which the human imagines that they're going to master being this passive creature to whom things happen, right? By becoming morbidly obsessed in this case with exactly those things happening. so they can be. Did you see The Deer Hunter? It's a perfect example.
No.
Okay. The Deer Hunter is a movie about Vietnam, the Vietnam War. And in that war, the soldiers were forced to play Russian roulette, by the Viet Cong.
Yeah.
Okay? It was a very horrible thing to be forced to do if that happened. In the movie that happened, right? And so when you pulled the trigger, you didn't know if you were going to live like one more second, right? And when you were playing that game, you didn't know if you were going to live an extra hour or not, right? Yeah. But then the war was over. America lost. The soldiers go home. And the movie is about Christopher Walken goes back to Vietnam, and he's playing the game for fun now and for money. In other words, he got so fixated on that now he's got repetition compulsion and active mastery. He's trying to say, I'm not a passive victim. I'm doing this on my own. I'm doing it because I want to do it, right? Okay?
Okay.
So that's an example of active mastery. It can be pathological, right? It's also an example of repetition compulsion. But let's not forget what you wanted to know why you doom scroll. First of all, because that's what's there, because that's what gets the clicks, and that's what gets the money, and people like money, and people like entertainment. Secondly, what's the average age, would you say, of the YouTube, of the X or YouTube elements that you're watching?
Could range from 10 to 35 or 40.
Yeah. There's not many geezers on there, not many people with experience, not many people who've been through this kind of stuff before. And even if there were, people aren't interested, right? They shouldn't be. I mean, that's fine. That's not the point. The point is that it's all biased in that direction. How many YouTubes have you seen recently, or how many things have you seen? Hey, we need to pull together and do something constructive. I mean, you see that.
A bit, but not much.
How much from the 20 and 30-year-olds? Almost never. You know why? Because the ones that are doing that are too busy. They're not on X and YouTube or Reddit. They're in the lab, or they're at work, or they're programming, or they're doing the work, right? Or they're planting the fields, or they're building drones, or they're part of it, right? So one thing, you have a selection bias, a huge selection bias on these Reddit, X, and YouTube, right? Secondly, remember we talked about how the brain gets habituated to a certain level of stimulation?
Yes.
It doesn't mean something's wrong with the brain. The brain is adapting, right? So the brain that constantly is fed high stimulation will, by default, get to that place where it needs that stimulation in order to feel, relaxed. Right? Now, how do you avoid that? It's like breathing. It's like a caffeine or alcohol, right? If you completely put that into your body on a regular basis, pretty soon, if you don't put it in there, your body won't feel right. Right? Yeah. So it's just an addiction. It's an addiction like any other, but with habituation and tolerance, right? So the other thing is the movies. I'm going to sound like an old man here, but the movies, you don't know this, but they've gotten more and more violence, more and more sex, more and more gore, because you have to turn up the dial because of the tolerance. All right? So this is why it's so vital for you to know yourself, because these are the kinds of things you have to know if you're going to function in this world well. So knowing yourself means knowing my brain. How does my brain work? And what is the impact of this, first of all, this level of stimulation, and secondly, this kind of content on my consciousness? And you've already told you already told me that it sucks. It doesn't even feel good.
Yep.
Right? So why do you keep doing it? For the same reason Christopher Walken does that, for the same reason in The Deer Hunter, or for the same reason Patty Hearst, you don't know these people, it's okay. For the same reason people keep drinking booze even though they hate the fact that they're alcoholic. Or for the same reason that people, continue to drink that 8th cup of coffee even though it makes them feel, do you know what I'm saying? It's just a simple habit. And your brain, being normal, responds to that by adapting to it. So the way you deal with it, so that's a different question. If you want to know how to deal with it, let's talk about that. But next question, what is next? Does that answer your question?
Yes, and okay. I was going to ask the same thing, like how to deal with this.
Okay. Question.
Yeah, so how to deal with the problem of doom scrolling.
Okay. Well, it's not just doom scrolling. It's also, even if you're not doom scrolling, you can get into a video game. Or into, this used to be the same thing with television, believe it or not. Television, it was a new thing. And people got really into it, especially kids, and they would watch it all day long because it's the easiest thing to do, right? You just sit there. Then it was easy for the parents, too. So they'd park the kids in front of the cartoons, and they'd be after-school programming, Zorro and crazy stuff you've never heard of, right? I Love Lucy.
I've heard of Zorro. Okay,
good. I Love Lucy. It was a little bit healthier, The Three Stooges. But The Three Stooges was all about punk, people beating each other up, right? It was hilarious, right? Okay, so the human desire for entertainment is normal. And if you put a kid in front of it, they'll stay there all day, right? Just like video games. But the same thing was true with television. Now the difference here is that in this question you're asking me what can be done about it.
Yes.
Well, because the normal brain adapts and habituates to this level of stimulation, you've got to like break that process, right? So if somebody, let's say somebody, God forbid, people are going to like freak out just by me talking about this. Coffee addicts, right? If you say, okay, well, just drink coffee 4 days a week and then skip a couple of days, they're not going to do that because they're going to get a headache, right? And an alcoholic, right? Same thing. And it's somebody who thinks they're addicted to Coke, same thing, right? So I can sit here and say, hey, you should take, an hour off from this in the middle of it to reset your brain a little bit. But people aren't going to do that, right? Unless they're truly motivated to take control of their brain and their minds. And so this is why finding yourself is vital and critical, and understanding your brain is also vital and critical. There's 1,000 things you can do. You can switch modalities, right? You can instead of Reddit, X, and YouTube, you could, you could play some music without a picture, without headphones and without this or that. Obviously, I don't want to say the word because it's like, you could sit and quietly meditate, contemplate, right? Just sit and think. Look around. You can go for a walk. You can go to the kitchen, make some food. But anything basically the idea is you're interrupting the habituation process. So the reason it's a habit is because it's turned into a habit, but it's less likely to be a habit if you interrupt it periodically. And if you interrupt it periodically with something that's good for you, like a walk or a contemplation of what your real circumstance is, then you're moving ahead quite nicely, right? And this problem will go away. But right now it's hard to take your eyes off it because it feels like it's the end of the world, right? Are they going to kill Trump, or is Biden going to fall down the stairs and crack his skull? It feels like everything's so dramatic partly because the media, the social media and the mainstream media, they're motivated by money and by attention. And your attention is, people should keep their attention the way they do their dollar bills, right? People talk about paying attention. There's a reason why it's paying attention, because you are paying, right? And so don't just throw away your money. Don't just throw away your attention. Think about it consciously. Why am I watching this? What am I going to learn from this? Or am I just going to sit here and just get freaked out? And it's just some numbskull that, it's like he's 22 years old, a very well-intentioned kid, right? But he wants to be an influencer, so he knows he'll get clicks if he talks about this, right? If he talks about Kim Kardashian's butt, then he knows, he's going to get more money than if he talks about, surfing in Hawaii. So things that are popular are rarely good.
Okay.
I don't know if I should say that. But, pardon me?
Honestly, if things are popular, then it's not nuanced as well because it's directed to almost everyone.
Correct. Okay, does that make sense? There's a ton more. We could go on this forever. But next question? Yes. Question?
Yeah, so next question is, I think we discussed way back, but I'm still not sure, or I don't know. So why is self-image never accurate?
Because it's never real. It's all false. It's all made of arbitrary. But okay, let's say you have a self-belief that you're short. Let's say you have a self-belief that you're short, right?
Okay.
And you really believe this. You really believe it. As a matter of fact, you're short. There's just no way around it. You're short. Then you go to Guatemala. Now you're tall. Huh. So what about that was real? What about that short part was real, right? Or you could do that with fat and skinny, right? Depending on which part of the world you're in, you're either fat or you're skinny, right? So, and everything's like this. Everything in this world is relative. So on that level alone, it's false. Okay?
But that's just being pedantic about small things or being
No, it's
too
not big.
particular
Okay,
about
all right,
things.
good. So ask the question again. Let's give it another try.
Yeah, so yeah, I kind of understand that I I may be relatively tall or relatively short if I'm in US, but relatively tall if I'm in Guatemala or any other place.
Okay.
So in a way, yeah, you can say that self-image
Okay. Now, what about
changes with
smart?
space
What
time.
about smart?
Even that changes. It's like
Okay.
if
Okay. So let's.
yours.
I don't want to hear about yours, but let's talk about a person's human self-image. Tell me about a 25-year-old woman's self-image or self-belief. Just give me anything.
Uh, she could be thinking that she's not beautiful,
Okay. Good.
or she will, and no one will love her because of that,
Okay.
and
Good.
she will all be alone. She, uh, she may not get promoted. She believes that could be because of other reasons, or yeah, these are some I could
Okay.
think
Good.
of.
Good. Those are good. Those are good
Maybe.
because these are painful, right? Now you
Yes.
ask. What I'm trying to demonstrate is this self-image is not true, right? Because it's not real. Now, every one of these things, that she's not beautiful, that no one will love her, that she'll always be alone, that she's not going to get promoted, every one of those things could be proved false tomorrow. Every one of them. Everyone's beautiful in somebody's eyes, right? Everybody, the idea that no one will ever be in love or be loved, that's patently false. That she'll always be alone, well, that will also get rid of that. And that she won't get promoted, those are all capricious, arbitrary things. Those could change in a day. Those could change in a week, they could change in a year. Or she could really, really believe them and she'll make herself unattractive where no one will love her and she won't get promoted and she'll live alone because she's made it go that way. Right? She so much believed in her beliefs that she created her destiny that way, right? So
Yeah,
what
honestly,
all I'm
that's
saying
like
is
the
the
most
self-image is
problematic.
okay. So let's not go too deep. Let's just, instead of saying it's false, let's say it's arbitrary and it's capricious and it's
That
context dependent.
would be accurate.
Okay. Now, ask your question again.
But like sometimes aren't some beliefs good as well because that way
Like what?
you
Give me one.
avoid
Give me one. Give me a belief.
you believe that would be good. You could say that I am not good at empathetic related skills, so I shouldn't apply for empathetic related jobs like
Okay.
physical training.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, stop. That's okay. Good. That's good. I'm not empathic, and I wouldn't be good at empathic jobs. Okay.
Yes.
Empathic compared to what? I've been in high tech companies where, just the fact that so empathy is all relative, right? So you may not be empathic compared to, the people on Broadway, right?
Yeah.
But compared to the people that are coding down in the second floor of Hewlett Packard, you're one of the most empathic people there. Do you see what I'm saying? So if you take something out of context and make it a belief and then apply it someplace else, that's what makes it false, right? Can you see that?
Oh, so everything relative.
And everything's context dependent and time dependent. That's what makes it a fool's errand to put all your money on this horse, which you know is going to fall apart.
So it's not about approximation. It's that factually wrong because it totally depends on the context. It totally depends.
That's part of it, yes. And then it's also factually correct, but that's something else. Yeah, but go ahead. Yeah, it depends on the context. And it's relative and it's arbitrary. If you want to hang your hat on that, you're going to lose your hat. Or your life, or both.
It's still difficult to distance myself from it.
Well, how many times do you change your context in a given 6-month period? How many times do you really change your context? Live in a completely different environment. Change all of the media you look at. Change the people you hang out with.
Rare.
Huh?
That's pretty rare. That's pretty rare.
That's what? Pretty rare.
Pretty rare.
Well, then how would you know? Because you keep your context the same. You keep everything the same, and you want it to be different. I mean, that's another. You know, we have all these popular definitions of loony. I don't know what words to use. I don't want to use the word crazy, insanity.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm talking about. But the idea is that you keep everything the same. The only thing that changes is you want it to be different. I mean, what do you call that?
That can only happen if one believes one is separate from others.
No, you could. What?
You said, right, that one cannot change if they don't change their environment.
One cannot learn what of their self-beliefs are true or false. Don't generalize too far. One cannot tell which one of their self-beliefs are true or false until they've been in a number of different contexts, because every one of these beliefs is context dependent.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a different logical proposition, but good, yes. Excellent. Yes. All right. Anything? Let's get some questions going, and then we're going to have to wrap up. But this is good. Good.
Yeah. One more question.
All right.
So, how accurate can a mind be in predicting events, like with respect to time, like pretty nearby, or
the closer in time it is, the more accurate, obviously. But after that, I wouldn't. I mean, we could send a rocket to Mars or the moon or something like that, so we could predict certain things, right? But other things we can't predict. I mean, I remember I was walking along one day, happy as a clam, and then John Lennon was shot. My favorite Beatle, dead. Now, who predicted that? Who predicted that the AI was going to put Native Americans in World War II Germany because it didn't want to offend anybody, right? And it wanted a diverse population. Have you seen these things? It's hilarious. People are asking Midjourney. They say, "Well, here, show us some people from the 1700s," and they show people from India, for example, with feathers, like Native Americans. The thing has gone nuts, right? Nobody predicted that. Who predicted the LLMs were going to work this well this quickly? I mean, that changed the world. This is like 20 years early. You know that. Yeah. So we're going along with thinking, okay, we got 20 years to get ready. And then boom, these things are unreasonably effective with words and numbers. I mean, with, ones and zeros. So yeah, the human mind, except in trivial things, can't predict that much. Now, while we're on it though, you have to read. If you want to get rid of the Reddit, X, and YouTube blues, go to YouTube and look at Stephen Wolfram's latest talk, or it's a dialogue about his the observer problem. I think you'll just watch it. Just watch the first, maybe the first hour, and you can. And go to the parts that interest you the most. But he talks about the observer problem and the fact that the observer creates the laws of physics that the observer is going to observe. And that creates our universe. That creates our world of physics. So what he's saying is radical, unless you've read 2nd century Huayan Buddhism, right? The Avatamsaka Sutra, where they say exactly the same thing, according to the inclination. Okay, so, but I digress. I got excited. So now where are we? You still want to hold on to the self-beliefs?
I still do. Although logically I don't want to, but unconsciously I still do.
Well, that's because you haven't changed your context.
Yes.
So you do want to suffer. And you need to be honest with yourself. I want to suffer. I want to feel bad. I want to wallow in my misery. I want to doom scroll and feel bad about myself. I just want to keep doing this because I know it, right? You're familiar with it. At least it's not scary because it's something you know, right? But just be honest with yourself and say, yeah, that's what I want to do because it's at least this is something I know and I feel secure here. It may be hell, but it's my hell, right?
So why does mind behave like this at all? Like it won't.
It doesn't. You have to put it in a cave for it to behave that way. You literally have to you have to shrink wrap it into a fixed environment and leave it there for years for the mind to do that. And that's not normal. That's not a normal environment. But it's created that way so people suffer. I guess I don't know. Why would we put people in cubicles and leave them there for 40 hours a week or more? Just like, I mean, you're designing things to make people miserable. And then pretty soon you take away the business and they go home and they start doing it because that's all they know, right? And people like what they know. They like what's familiar. Now, what's familiar, what you're telling me, is that feeling miserable and feeling bad and doom scrolling and hopeless and helpless and all this other stuff is what you know. And it feels familiar. So you asked me the question. I'm sorry if I answered it, but that's why.
I think I was thinking a bit about it, and I think my mind was saying, at least this is something good. And if I were to try something new, it would be even worse than this.
What's something good?
It would be even right now. Just doom scrolling is still good.
Well, it's certainly entertaining. It is entertaining, right? It's designed to do that. And by the way, if I had to say anything to the world, especially the young people, it would be guard your mind. You're basically under assault by AIs, not AGI yet, but you're under the assault of AIs, and they're sophisticated. They know where your eyes are. They know where you're looking. They know how long you spend. They know what you look at. They know the vector space of related things or whatever, and they will enslave you. And they're going to enslave most people, unless
that is already happening.
Well, then some people want to be a slave because that's what they know, right?
Yeah, blue pill and matrix.
There are people. Okay, I know people personally that were in prison for a very, very long time. So long that when they got their freedom, they say, "Nah, you know something? I kind of like it back in prison." I mean, that's true.
That's what happened in Shawshank Redemption as well, right?
Is it? I don't know. Did that happen in Shawshank Redemption? He went back to prison?
One of the guy just killed himself. No, he killed himself because he felt that the prison life was so good. Everything was...
Because that's what he knew. That's what he knew, right? But unfortunately, maybe I don't know what I get Shawshank mixed up with Green Mile and other things like that. So, but the point is this: is if you imprison your mind and you leave it there long enough, then there's nothing you can do later because you'd rather be in that prison suffering than being in some place that you feel that's new. I mean, at that point, you don't want novelty. You want everything to be doom. You want everything to be Kim Kardashian's butt. You want everything to be, the lamestream media, end of the world. You want everything to be Donald Trump, right, or whatever, or. So that's mental suicide, or not suicide. It's mental enslavement, and so guard your mind becomes absolutely essential in this age, and that's what's different. Because in the old days, things came more slowly, and they weren't as sophisticated with A/B testing, and they couldn't monitor every little eye movement and every little chunk of information that you're absorbing. So if you don't guard your mind, someone will enslave it. Period. So that's another reason to change your context, right? Okay. Last question. These are good questions, by the way. Good. I think that
No, I think that's about it.
All right, sir.
We're out of time.
All right.
Yes.
Take good care. All right. We'll see you later.
Yep. Same
All
to
right.
you.
Bye.